Welcome to the NBAV podcast. Welcome back to NBAV and the NBA Avenue podcast. We're off the heels of our previous show where we were talking about Klay Thompson. Everyone was talking about Klay Thompson. Klay taking a look at the next phase of his career, saying, I understand that players move into different phases of their career, and if I play it right from here on out, I can still be successful like other players who did the same exact thing and were aware of how their game needed to change moving forward in their career to be as successful as you can be. And we talked about how Klay doesn't really deserve that much credit because he's acknowledging the inevitable. He didn't really have much of a choice, right? He can either continue to get benched in games, or he can acknowledge that he's not Klay Thompson from the Warriors' third championship. He's not Game 6 Klay anymore. He's not the guy who defends your best player on the opposing team's best player on one end and then drops 30 on the other end. And we proved to be absolutely correct because actions speak louder than words. And Klay Thompson last night against the Los Angeles Clippers goes out and thinks he's still that same old Klay. And with 5 or 6 minutes left to go in the ball game, he shoots a three, misses. Steph Curry gets the long rebound, gives it immediately back to Klay, and Klay, totally irrational, with the irrational confidence, hoists up another three, no hesitation, misses again. Back down the court the other way from the Los Angeles Clippers, and Norman Powell just dominates them. He hit a whole bunch of threes in the fourth quarter. And then what happens? Klay Thompson gets pulled out of the game after those two missed three-pointers. And immediately you see Podziemski make a couple of buckets. And Podziemski was fantastic last night on the offensive end. With ice in his veins, he really showed that in the fourth quarter he made some really impressive buckets. One, I believe, was more of a runner in the lane, and then he hit a corner three with the pressure on where the Warriors were kind of about to be out of the game if he didn't make that three. So some impressive stuff from Podziemski on the offensive end. And then, when the Warriors were down by a couple of points after, I believe, Coffey hit a three, right? You had Norman Powell decimating the Warriors with several threes. And then you had Coffey with a very timely three. They put Klay Thompson back in the game because the Warriors were at a point where they needed to hit a three just to keep the game close and to have a chance at the end. But then it wasn't Klay who hit the three, it was Podziemski. Podziemski hits the three, brings the Warriors to within a one-possession game. They're down by three now, and Klay stupidly fouls in the full-court press. And what that did was it put the Clippers back at the foul line and effectively ended the Warriors' night, immediately going back to a two-possession game. What the Warriors needed to do right there was play clean defense, get a stop, and then come back down and try to tie the ball game with a three. But with Klay fouling, and you saw it on everybody's face, right? They had just taken Klay out of the game. They go back and they bring it back to a one-possession game, and Klay ruins it. So Klay was ruining the Warriors' play by missing a three, missing another three, gets taken out of the game, comes back into the game, and stupidly fouls. And Podziemski's face said it all at the time, because when Klay Thompson made that foul, Podziemski threw up his hands on his face like, oh, God, what are we doing? And it was like the rookie became the vet, and the vet became the rookie. Warriors end up losing this game, and what does this tell you? Actions speak louder than words. Klay Thompson can say that he admits that he's entering the next phase of his career, but his actions are showing that he thinks he's exactly who he always was. So unfortunately, unless the Warriors pull Klay out of more games earlier, he's going to continue to cement that his opinion of himself has not changed. And he's going to continue to hurt the team, and the Warriors and Steve Kerr need to show that they can save Klay Thompson from himself. Now, where Podziemski was really good on offense, when he's on defense with Steph Curry, he really hurts them as well. So that's another thing to think about, where Podziemski plays really well on offense, or at least he did in this past game against the Clippers, but then it's tough with Steph and Podziemski on defense. But then again, it's also tough with Steph and Klay on defense, with Klay not really bringing as much to the table as he used to. So definitely some things to think about for the Warriors, but particularly you got to rethink the credit that you're giving Klay Thompson, because he's talking the talk, but he's not walking the walk. And even talking the talk and walking the walk, it really wouldn't be that impressive considering his options. Klay Thompson's options right now are allow yourself to take a lesser role or get forced to take a lesser role, right? You can leave the company or, accept a demotion and take it in stride and try to do your best, or you can be forced to take the demotion and it'll be more embarrassing for you. Now, if Klay Thompson really took the demotion, did well in fewer minutes, brought his efficiency back up, and didn't hoist up threes that he shouldn't be taking, then that would put himself in a better position. And then you can start giving him credit like some of those former guys like Manu Ginobili. In some of the other headlines, we had Isaiah Stewart, who really rose to fame when he went after LeBron James on the court. And he couldn't be stopped. He continued to try and go after LeBron. And that's a really smart move compared to what he did last night. If you're going to shoot, you got to shoot high. Go after LeBron James. And that's how he made his name in the league, was you have this unknown rookie going after the king, going after the best player in the NBA, LeBron. And certainly going after the highest caliber, most famous player in the NBA. But what does he do here? He goes after Drew Eubanks. Now, what in the world could Drew Eubanks have possibly done to warrant getting punched in the face by Isaiah Stewart? Drew Eubanks? What did the guy do in the previous game? He scored 6 points for the Suns. He's not enough of a presence inside anyway. What are you doing taking him out of the game? You got to shoot high, right? You got to think Kevin Love taking out Giannis in the playoff series, right? Kevin Love injures Giannis, and I'm not saying he did this on purpose, but at least go after the other team's best player if you're going to do it, right? Think Zaza Pachulia landing on Kawhi Leonard. If you're going to do it, take out their best guy. Boris Diaw leveling Steve Nash in the playoffs. Kuminga recently, he did this. He fell on Joel Embiid, effectively rendering him on the sidelines for the foreseeable future. But don't waste your time punching Drew Eubanks. What did you do now? Now you're going to be in a bunch of hot water, and for what? For a regular season game? For a regular season game against the Suns, you could have gone after Devin Booker. You could have gone after Kevin Durant. I mean, heck, go after Grayson Allen. Go after someone who the Suns are going to use to beat you. Don't go after Drew Eubanks. Go after Nurkic. Take Nurkic out of the game, and the Suns won't get a rebound the entire 48 minutes. But how stupid can you be to go after Drew Eubanks? Then we have the Hornets. The Hornets win their third straight game, and this is a team who has barely any wins the entire season. What's the Hornets' record? The Hornets are, even with the three in a row, they're 13-41. They have a winning percentage of 24%. So they lose 3/4 of their ball games, and this is after winning 3 in a row. Hornets complete a couple of trades. They get rid of Gordon Hayward. They get rid of P.J. Washington, and they bring in Vasilije Micic, and they bring in Grant Williams, right? They bring in Trey Mann. And the Hornets announcer, who is the best, especially if you listen to a lot of ball games, if you watch a lot of ball games and you see how many poor announcers there are and poor color guys there are in the NBA, when you watch the Hornets, it is just a pleasure to hear the way he announces the ball game, both in terms of the entertainment factor and also in terms of the nuances he points out. He does a great job. And at one point in the game, he goes, "Hornets may never lose again." The Hornets may never lose again. This is a team who's 13-41. But that's the vibe right now. It's just a joyous atmosphere for the Hornets. They went on their largest lead last night. They had their largest lead of the season was 20 points, and they beat that last night. Right? The final score of the game was 122-99. So they ended it off winning by 23 points. That's a final score that's larger than their largest lead of the year, which was previously only 20. Trae Young averages 27 points a game, and he's going to the All-Star game, and last night he only scored 12. Only 12 points for Trae Young. That sounds like a recipe for a lot of victories. If you're going against the Hawks and Trae Young is only scoring 12, nail in the coffin, death sentence, game over. And you continue to see Micic's craftiness going to the hoop. He did this in the previous game, and he did this again now against the Hawks, where he drives to the basket. He has an open lane, and, well, how did he get the open lane? It's because he does this little thing where he fakes a pass. Somehow, while he's driving to the hoop, there's not so many players who could pull off this type of move, but he's driving to the hoop, and he's got just one guy to beat. So what does he do? He kind of does some sort of action with his hands where it looks like he's going to throw the ball out. Everyone goes to defend the three, and Micic just takes the open lane and lays it in. We previously saw this from point guards like Rajon Rondo, where Rondo invented a move named after himself, where he would fake pass the ball behind his back. And if you watched Rondo interviews, he talks about how he developed that move. It's because when he would drive to the basket, he was a little bit too small. And he developed this fake behind the back move to just open up a little bit more space between him and the defensive player so that he could get the layup up over him. A little bit more space, and suddenly he was able to make those layups versus getting blocked. And Micic has a different way of going about that. He doesn't do Rondo's behind the back move, fake behind the back, but he fakes a pass out in more of an orthodox way, more of a common fake pass, but he does it during the drive in a crafty way that totally throws the defenders off, and defenders are going to have to learn to defend that and not give him the wide open layup. Micic has also proven where the scouting report on him was that he only finishes with his right hand. Even when going left, he resorts to his right hand, but now he's been able to, in back-to-back games, finish with the left hand. Impressive. 3 in a row. Wow. And Miles Bridges is just in his bag. He's so calm, and he's playing such good basketball right now with these new cast of characters for the Hornets that now he's just effortlessly swishing these three-pointers with space, calmly. He put up 17 in the game last night in a very effective 34 minutes. He had 26 from the rookie Brandon Miller, 21 from Trey Mann, 15 from Grant Williams, 13 from Micic, 9 from Curry off the bench, and a three-pointer from Bertans. So everything coming up all Hornets as they're playing their best basketball of the season. The Heat winning again. They continue to remain in their tie for the 7 and 8 seed against the Orlando Magic. They're in a bit of a stare down and of a standstill with them. The Heat, all they got to do is play without Jimmy Butler, play without Terry Rozier, and boom. In an incredibly inconsistent year for them, they win 2 games in a row. If you go down their minutes, it's Caleb Martin with 25. Nikola Jovic played 14. He only scored 3 points. Adebayo and Hero played 38 and 39 minutes, each putting up 23 points. Duncan Robinson chipped in with a 20. Haywood Highsmith in 36 minutes chipped in with 16. And Jaime Jaquez in 32 minutes put up 12 points. Only 2 points from Kevin Love. So the Miami Heat doing it with smoke and mirrors right now. You have this super young, inexperienced roster with Jaquez, with Jovic, with Highsmith. And somehow they're winning without their big guns, without Butler, without the newly acquired Rozier. The Cleveland Cavaliers continue to be one of the more interesting teams in the NBA. They won last night. They beat the Chicago Bulls. They were going a bit back and forth where Garland hit a 3, Kobe White hit a 3 back the other way. In the end, Cleveland able to come away with the victory. Down the stretch, 108-105. And they continue to be one of the more interesting teams to discuss. Why? Because How are things going to work out with Mitchell and Garland? You have two players playing virtually the same position. And spoiler alert, the final feeling, the final verdict on this team is going to be based on how they do during the postseason. Right? That's going to be the final feeling. It doesn't matter if they get the 2 seed. I mean, it's encouraging, and it bodes well for them in terms of who they're going to end up playing in the playoffs, perhaps. But at the end of the day, it's going to be the same thing like last year when they come up short in the postseason, and they are going to come up short in the postseason. This team is not going to the finals. So the final feeling is most likely going to be disappointment. Yeah, the best case scenario is that the Cavaliers lose to Boston. And if they lose to Boston in the postseason, a team that they're never expected to beat, then you can at least minimize that feeling of disappointment because you know that going in, you're not expected to win. But if they go and they lose again to the Knicks, or if they lose to the Sixers in the postseason, or if they lose to any other team, perhaps aside from Milwaukee and Boston, it's going to be disappointment. And you're going to be in this same position where you have Garland and you have Mitchell, and you don't know which player to build around, and they're playing the same position. So the team is not as good as they can be if everything was situated effectively around one star and you filled out the roster better around that one player. And meanwhile, you have Darius Garland for this season and the next 4, whereas for Donovan Mitchell, you only have him for this season and the next 2. And you can't use the salary to help build out the rest of the team because you're paying it to Garland and you're paying it to Mitchell. But you're unsure of which player to hold on to because you have Garland for 2 seasons longer than you have Mitchell, and you're not sure if Mitchell wants to stay with the team. So whereas Donovan Mitchell is earning you a couple of really long win streaks, 9 games, and I forget how many their first win streak was before the 9-game win streak that propelled them to this 2 seed. But it's hard to know who to build the team around. So when Donovan Mitchell goes on these 2 win streaks, you'd think, hey, maybe it's an opportunity to trade Garland because he wasn't part of these win streaks. But maybe it's an opportunity to trade Mitchell because the return that you're going to get from Mitchell with the basketball he's playing right now is a lot more than you can get for Garland. Garland comes back and he looks really good. He looks really shifty. He looks to be full health. He's hitting his 3-pointers. So it's just a tough situation because in the end of the day, it's going to be disappointment in Cleveland. So what do? It's a tough situation. Then some of the silliest and dumbest news that you have in the NBA all week are all the teams coming out with, before the trade deadline, this team wanted to trade for this player, and this team, the Warriors, wanted to trade for LeBron, and this team wanted to trade for this star, and so on. The only thing worse than hearing about trade rumors is hearing about trade rumors after the fact, after they already didn't happen. It's these teams' job, it's their job to go inquire about players to potentially trade for. And you can go ask what would it take to get LeBron off the Lakers. And it doesn't mean that you were really close to getting LeBron. It doesn't mean that you were willing to give away key players to get him. So if you really want to waste your time more than thinking about which players are going to get traded before the deadline, then just talk about which players could have been traded after the deadline, when it's already set in stone that didn't happen. As we continue to look through last night's ball games, let's just go from top to bottom very quickly. You had the Hornets winning by 23 against the Hawks, which we already discussed. You had the Heat beating the Sixers, which we discussed. The Magic give it to the New York Knicks. Banchero playing at the top of his game. The Knicks continue to struggle with missing their players, and, they're in a rut right now. It's partially due to the fact that they're missing key guys on their team, like OG, who was part of that big win streak, and Hartenstein, who's part of everything going well for the Knicks this year. They don't have Mitchell Robinson anymore. So it's really tough for the New York Knicks right now. They've lost 4 in a row, and they really got screwed out of that last game against the Rockets where they really could have won with that game going into overtime, but the referees took it away from them. And now the losses start to add up. They've lost 4 in a row. And they went against an Orlando Magic team in Orlando who consistently play very well. They're 6 games above 500. And Banchero and Franz Wagner bring it every single night. You had 36 from Banchero, 21 from Wagner, 11 from Cole Anthony, and 10 from Mo Wagner, and 8 from Jonathan Isaac. So the Knicks, shorthanded, they had to play Jericho Sims a lot of minutes, and Jericho Sims is their least effective of all of their big men, not counting Taj Gibson, of course, who played for 9 minutes and didn't record any statistics. But without Hartenstein, without Robinson, without Anunoby, it's going to be tough for them to beat good teams, and Orlando has shown this season that they're a quality team. From there, we had the Celtics finish up their back-to-back decimation of the Brooklyn Nets. The Nets lose by 50, 136 to 86, so the Celtics handled their business as well as any team, and that's what they've done this season. The Celtics are 6 games up on the Cavaliers, way out ahead of the pack, winning 78% of their games as the 1 seed. The Celtics just putting up a dominant season in quest for the NBA championship. Cavaliers won again, beating the Bulls, as we discussed. The Pacers got a narrow victory against the Raptors in Pascal Siakam's return to Toronto, 127-125. Pelicans handled business against the Wizards. Pelicans have been very fortunate with their schedule right now, and that's really helped them win a lot of these ball games. But nonetheless, you have to compliment them on their ability to continue to win these ball games, and they are in a standstill with Phoenix for the 5 and 6 seed in the Western Conference. And it's important because you want to stay in the 6 seed or above so that you don't have to fiddle around with these silly play-in games. So good job by the Pelicans. And then you have the Grizzlies welcoming back G.G. Jackson, and G.G. Jackson ends up being their leading scorer in the game. He puts up 20, and then you have Kennard putting up 19, and Jaren Jackson Jr. putting up 18. So a really well-balanced performance. You had 10 from Jordan Goodwin, 8 from Conchar, 12 from Vince Williams, and 14 from Lamar Stevens, another promising young player in the Memphis Grizzlies organization. I don't know what the Grizzlies do well to develop so many of these young guys, but this is after they already got rid of Kenny Lofton Jr., another promising player in their organization. And they still have all these guys coming up through the G League. And one guy looks better than the next. So the Rockets lose to the Grizzlies, a disappointing loss for the Rockets and for Şengün and for that team who seems like they should have been on the upswing, but they were really doing it without Fred VanVleet. And Fred is paramount to their success. So without VanVleet, the Grizzlies, who bring it every single night, with their mentality, they get the upset victory in Memphis. The Mavericks, winners of 6 straight now, as they knock off the pedestrian San Antonio Spurs. Mavericks on the longest win streak in the NBA, along with the Boston Celtics. Mavericks have been undefeated since the trade deadline and before the trade deadline. I loved what they did at the trade deadline, and they continue to show that they're making the right moves. You had a really, really nifty play where Kyrie Irving drove and went baseline under the basket against Victor Wembanyama, and he did the equivalent of a backwards grandma shot, but somehow he did it on the run like a reverse layup, but he knew if he went classic reverse, Wemby would block it. But he somehow went no glass, backward shot, really nifty finish from Kyrie. Mavericks handled business against the Spurs, 116-93 for the 23-point victory. You have the Suns handling business at home against the Pistons, where we already discussed Isaiah Stewart for some reason punching Drew Eubanks in the face. Not sure what that was all about. The Lakers handle business against the Jazz, who cannot get a victory since the trade deadline and getting rid of Fontecchio, Olynyk, and Agbaji. So good win there for the Lakers. The Kings beat the Nuggets, who were playing without Jamal Murray. And they really could have used him because this game was up for grabs in the final few minutes. And you know who they turned to in the final few minutes. It's a mix between Jokic and the guy who has ice in his veins, playoff Jamal Murray. So the Kings continue to go up and down, but getting a good victory nonetheless, going against Denver in the Mile High City. And then you have the Clippers, as we already discussed, beating the Warriors on the back of Norman Powell's tremendous game in the absence of Kawhi Leonard. So a really phenomenal victory for the Clippers there, and they end the 5-game win streak for the Warriors. Coming up on the docket tonight, it's a really quiet night as we head into the All-Star break. It's only 3 ball games. We have the struggling Bucks playing the Memphis Grizzlies, who are completing a homestand. The Grizzlies playing on back-to-back nights in their building. They're going to bring it, and they're going to try to really kick the Bucks while they're down and try to send the Bucks reeling into the All-Star break. Yeah, Milwaukee going against Memphis in what should be a good clash. You have the Warriors going against the Jazz. Warriors beat the Jazz in the past few nights, and the Warriors are coming off of a tough loss against the Clippers, and the Jazz are also coming off of a loss. So both teams going back-to-back. Warriors going to Utah. Warriors got to finish this out strong. The Jazz really have nothing to play for. The Warriors are in front of the Jazz in the 10 seed, and they should remain that way. Look for the Warriors to get that victory tonight off of the disappointing loss last night. Steph Curry still playing absolutely on top of his game, and Draymond as well. And then you have the Timberwolves, who are going to go in and defeat the Trailblazers. They just beat the Trailblazers, and they're going to go in and handle business against them again. And then after that, we will talk all things All-Star break. We'll talk about the festivities, the slam dunk, the three-point, but we can do that in a future episode. For now, we are NBAV and NBA Avenue. Follow us on social and email the show with your questions and comments at nbavenue@yahoo.com. For a great time every time. And until next time, we are out.